Well, guys, it is that time of year. I can't neglect the landscape anymore. You know, it needed some attention. I'm just going to be honest with you. It needed some attention. My wife was getting on me about it. She was saying, hey, Ronnie, we need to get some more mulch. We need some more rocks. So we went out, we got more rocks. And the thing is these landscapers nowadays are so expensive, if you can even find one. And it's so hard to get anybody to work nowadays, right? So when you do find people, they're charging you an arm and a leg. They take forever to come out. So we ended up having to go out and do it ourselves. And we're seeing more and more do-it-yourself, DIYers in the stores, in the Home Depots, in the Lowe's. And basically, number one, it saves a lot of money. Number two, it's very rewarding to do it yourself. You put a little bit of elbow grease, sweat equity into it. And you look back at your project and you're like, wow, look at this thing, right? But anyway, guys, over 25% of the population here in the United States is struggling to make ends meet off of a single income. Many individuals are now at a point where they're just deciding, hey, maybe we need to move back home with our parents. And I get it. Cost of living is serious. Cost of living in Florida is becoming more and more astronomical. And I'm really waiting for a housing market correction in Florida, to be quite honest with you guys. Between the condo association fees, the homeowners association fees, not the homeowners, what is it? The HOA. That is homeowners association. Yeah. Those fees are going up so rapidly. It's just unbelievable. Insurance rates rapidly increasing. Insurance companies pulling out of the state of Florida. I wonder how many people are going to say, people who are living in Florida consider, are they going to consider moving to Georgia? Maybe to South Carolina, Myrtle Beach or something like that. Or maybe people considering moving to Florida may consider moving to Georgia instead, since the cost of living is a little bit less expensive in Georgia compared to Florida. But anyway, I'd love to hear from you guys on that one. But recent reports coming out talking about how the housing market, it's not recovering to the extent that a lot of people expected, and that the current interest rates indirectly set by the Fed are causing the housing market to take longer to recover, so to speak, right? Basically, mortgage rates are remaining elevated. And of course, this is making it much, much more expensive to own a home. And so this is negatively affecting home sales. Sellers are holding onto their properties. They're sitting on the market longer. If you look at Zillow, if you look at Redfin, Realtor.com, any of your favorite real estate websites, you're seeing residential properties sit on the market for a lot longer. Don't even get me started on commercial real estate. That's like dead money out there. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Me personally, I'm not looking to jump headfirst into any commercial real estate ETF or index fund at this point. But I do think that there's going to be some opportunities showing up, but I just don't think that the time is right yet. Especially with this whole work from home, remote worker demand ever increasing. Even in spite of employers trying to get people to come back into the office, most people would rather work from home, and most employees will fight to make that happen. Even if that means leaving their current employer to find a new employer, or even start a home-based business, an online business, a side hustle that will allow them to have time at home. Now, with that being said, yes, I do think that commercial real estate is going to take more of a beating for a while, for a long time. But with that being said, because of how much families value family time, the demand for a home will, in my opinion, remain very, very strong, to a point where people may still want homes even if they can't afford it. And that's fine, because the moment there's a bird on my roof, it kind of like scared me a little bit. But I wasn't really that scared, but it did kind of startle me just a little bit. All right. So the thing is people want to stay home with their families. They want to spend time with their families, not necessarily stay home, because they want to take vacations too. But the simple fact of the matter is that people post-pandemic realize how much family time they've missed. And this will forever, in my opinion, keep housing demand very, very high, very, very strong. And it's always been strong, even before the pandemic, but I think it really drives the point home. Now, of course, mortgage rates are always going to, play a factor in this, but just imagine the Federal Reserve just reported in June this month that they're not raising interest rates for the month of June. They did mention that, there's a possibility that there could be a couple more interest rate hikes for 2023, but that remains to be seen. But just imagine if the Fed decided, hey, we've done enough. Let's not do any more damage. What if they say they've done too much? Well, what do you think the Fed's going to do? The Fed would more than likely say, hey, maybe we need to cut interest rates. And if we see interest rates pull back at any point in time, we would likely see short-term interest rates begin to decrease. Short-term interest rates would clearly be affected by that. But more importantly, the 10-year Treasury would be affected, ultimately driving down the mortgage rates on 30-year fixed-rate mortgages. Now, if this happens, say goodbye to a housing market crash, and we could potentially see higher prices in the housing market as more and more people will get cheaper and cheaper loans. Or more importantly, the mortgage payments would be less and less expensive, allowing their buying power to be increased. Now, obviously, there's several things that would need to happen for this to fall into place, but hey, it's certainly not impossible. I'll say that. Now, as home sales are set to slump to a new low, as the U.S. housing market can't start recovering as long as mortgage rates remain elevated, unless all of a sudden everybody starts making more money, like if everyone received a 10 to 30% raise in their 9-to-5 pay, then all of a sudden we don't need interest rates to drop. People can afford more. But of course, that's an unlikely scenario. But recently we heard from an investment firm, and they're saying that they were baffled by the emerging narrative in the commentary that the housing market is recovering, because from their data, they're saying that it's not. And ultimately, they're pointing to growing optimism for a housing market recovery as mortgage rates pull back slightly. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It really depends. Real estate is, in my opinion, it's always going to be a very, very good investment. And even now, like, housing prices are not necessarily at the lowest that they've ever been. That is definitely not the case. In fact, we've seen a ridiculous amount of real estate appreciation, housing market appreciation over the last, 3 years, more rapid than we've ever seen in history. But even still, and even with mortgage rates being relatively high, when I say relatively high, they're still technically low. I mean, if you go back 20 years, 6%, 7% interest rates on a 30-year fixed rate mortgages, is a deal. I used to work at this telemarketing company, and my job was to basically annoy people on the phone. But I was in high school, and at 16 years old, having an office job, so to speak, that was winning. And my job at the time was to call people up. I had a little script. I had a list of phone numbers I needed to dial. Probably called about 100, 200 people per day. I only worked part-time. And my goal was to convince people to allow me to offer them a lower rate mortgage, a lower rate for their mortgage. Now, when I would call people up, obviously they don't know me from a hole in the wall. I'm just some random caller. Most people just hung up on me. But when I would call people up, I would say, hey, this is Ron, how you doing? Don't hang up. Do you own your home? Some people would rent, and if they did, okay, end of the discussion. But if they own their home, if they had a mortgage on their home, I would ask them, hey, just out of curiosity, before you hang up on me, because I know you want to, probably got, clothes in the washing machine or whatever. The kids are yelling and screaming in the background. Maybe you're in the middle of washing dishes. I'm going to let you get back to your thing. But I just want to ask you real quick, how much is your interest rate on your mortgage payment? And the people who would answer that would tell me anything from 8% mortgage, 8% interest on their 30-year fixed rate mortgage, as high as 14% on their 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And I was a kid. I didn't even know that this was like I didn't know that was high. I just knew what we could do. And I knew that the company that I was working for was able to get like 8% interest rates on 30-year fixed rate mortgages. And I knew that if I could typically get anywhere from a 2% or greater discount on their current mortgage payment, they would be interested in talking to me further. My point behind this is, back then, if you could get 7, 8, 9% interest rate on your house, on your 30-year fixed rate mortgage, they were jumping all over the deal. Needless to say, I closed a lot of transactions. Probably made more money than a 16-year-old should have been able to make back then, but that's beside the point. The point of what I'm talking about right now is that everything is relative. We've been in an interest rate environment of seeing 2, 3, 4% interest rate mortgage, 2 to 4% interest rates for 30-year fixed rate mortgages for a good 10 years. So the simple fact of the matter is that most humans have a very short memory span. It's one of the cognitive biases of human beings. Most people just don't remember shit. So, like, the fact that we have had low interest rate mortgages for so long, and now that we have, oh my God, 6%, 7%, it seems high, but technically it's not. And there was a period of time, I want to say it was like in the 80s maybe, where interest rates were like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19%, which that is astronomical. That's like buying a house on your Visa credit card or your American Express card, right? So I think that if you're in a position to be able to buy a house and it works for you financially, you have an emergency fund, you're contributing to your 401ks, your investment accounts, you're building financial independence, you're on your way to financial freedom, you're working on your retirement, and you can still afford a house, I say, if you see a decent deal in the market and you get a reasonable interest rate, you got a decent credit score, if it works for you, you go ahead and do it. If you think that's a good idea for you. And the reason I say that is because I've always learned, whether it's the stock market, investing in the stock market, investing in the housing market, no one ever knows when you're at the top of the market, and no one ever knows when you're at the bottom of the market. And the only way you ever know when there was the only way you ever know where the bottom of a market is you have to get past it. You have to allow time to go by. And then you can look back on a chart and say, oh, 3 years ago was the bottom of the housing market. Oh, you should have bought then, but you don't know when you're at the bottom as the bottom is forming. No one knows that. And if anyone's telling you that, then they're freaking lying to you. So anyway, that's just my take on it. But, that's where we are right now. Mortgage applications, they have actually increased. So that is showing some signs of increased demand. Mortgage applications actually increased by 7% at the beginning of June. So that's a good sign. We're actually in one of the busiest housing market seasons of the year, which is basically like spring and summer. And this is a seasonal thing. The housing market is always busy during this time of year. It usually starts between probably like end of March going into April, end of August. The warmer months. Kids are out of school. Most parents, if they have kids, they want to move during this period of time. Not to mention, it's a lot more attractive and fun looking at houses when it's warmer out versus when it's like 12 degrees outside. But anyway, guys, drop me some comments down below. Let me know what you guys are seeing. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Yeah, the cost of living is high. Inflation's coming down, according to the CPI reports. But no, we're not seeing reduced prices on the goods we buy. And we probably won't see them anytime soon. Although I will say the price of eggs has come down a bit. There have been some items in the grocery stores that I'm seeing a little bit cheaper. But in terms of asset prices, like real estate, the stock market, I mean, the S&P 500 right now is still sitting within 6-7% of the all-time high. And all it's going to take is a little bit more optimism, some unexpected good news, and all of a sudden, the real estate, the stock market could take off. So for those who haven't yet started investing, One of the easiest ways, simplest ways you can get started investing. Open up your brokerage account. Get you an M1 Finance account, Fidelity, E-Trade, Robinhood, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch, whatever your favorite company is you want to work with. Just get going, you know. I mean, for me, I started back in the day, open up an account, investing as little as $50 a month. And it was one of the best decisions I had ever made, you know. Short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. Anyway, guys, if you guys are new to the channel, do your boy a favor, drop a quick like for the video, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'm going to catch you guys on the next one.